Everybody's in the same boat though, Randy. Like everybody that graduated recently has to get on a plan. And so we're assuming that the Department of Education is going to be getting this figured out shortly. And so let's just say they do figure it out. Okay. I'm guessing they're going to figure it out.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. And don't forget that CME credit is available when you listen with us. Just look for CMFI in the show notes to learn how. My guest today has been with us before. In fact, she was the subject of episode number 9, way back in our very first season of RX for Success. She is not a physician, but she can be the very best friend that a physician can have, especially if that physician is struggling with student loan debt. Her company is called Navigate, and they are experts in student loan repayment management. So let's hear my conversation with Joy Sorensen Navarre. I am really delighted today to be reconnecting with an old friend of ours, Joy Sorensen Navarre, who is the president and CEO of a company named Navigate. Joy, thanks so much for coming back to see us today. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Randy. I'm really excited to be here too. This is a great topic, one of my favorite topics.
It really is a great topic, and I'm going to, for the benefit of our listeners, I want to let everybody know that Joy goes way back to the beginning of RX for Success. She was actually episode number 9 back in 2019, if you can believe that, Joy. And I would certainly invite listeners, if they have the interest, to go back and hear that episode. It sort of lays the basis for what student loan management is all about. And I think there's some wonderful information in there. But what we intend to do today is sort of update everybody on where we stand in terms of student loan management. So, but before we get into the details, Joy, what I think I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to give the audience a quick explanation of how you got interested in student loan management and where Navigate came from.
I'll be glad to. Thanks, Randy. Navigate Student Loans is our tagline. We flipped the script on student debt. And I was a former financial advisor working with folks with advanced degrees, and many of them had student loans. And as we worked with them to figure out how best to repay those loans, we ended up finding out that really brilliant people with a heart for healing people often had missed some things in their own student loan planning. So when we started working with them on their student loan plans and saved them from $40,000 to $400,000, that last one was 2 doctors married to each other, I just got so excited about doing this. I said, as much as I loved my financial planning business, I sold my book of business to my partner and started a company to do just this. And so we help physicians figure out how to repay their loans in the best way to save them time and money.
And I'm going to guess that you're pretty busy.
We are pretty busy. We're growing. And it's sort of funny, Randy, we recently did a customer survey, a satisfaction survey, asking people what they appreciated about the work we're doing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they were going to say the data, right? Oh, we love to see the calculations and we like to know what the numbers are saying. No, they said, you make me feel like this is doable. I feel freedom again. Like they gave us all these like beautiful responses related to life, not so much the math.
I bet they did. I don't think there's anything quite as depressing as struggling with debt. I don't care what it is,
Yeah.
your home mortgage or whatever it might be. So, and particularly for people who have really struggled to get an education, get properly trained, they're under the pressure of what medical training is all about, and it's pretty easy for them to let the issue of their indebtedness sort of be in the background. And then all of a sudden, the bell rings and you got to come up with payment. Is that basically what you see?
Absolutely. I think it's smart not to worry about the student loans during the period of time when there's nothing you can do about them. During medical school, for example, you're not making any income, and so it doesn't make sense to make payments. Payments aren't officially due. But once people in medical school have matched and know what their residency program will be like, that's the time, like the end of the last year of medical school is the time to start thinking about, okay, so what plan is going to work best for me now to get started? And potentially there'll be a shift in plan afterwards, but that would be the time to start thinking about it.
And let's talk about that just a little bit more. Have you got some advice for people who actually might be in the market for a loan? How do you go about looking for a loan? Is one just like another? Are there decisions to be made? What's the story on student loan shopping?
Yeah, very few choices for student loans for medical school. Most people pursuing medicine are using the federal student loans. Surprisingly, they've got a better interest rate than the loans available on the private market. And so if you're eligible, sometimes people aren't eligible for the federal loans because of citizenship issues. But if you are eligible, most people are using the full amount that needed for medical school with those Grad Plus loans, they're called, from the federal government.
And what are some of the things that people should know? What kind of questions should people be asking when they go shopping for a loan?
Really, it's pretty simple on that front end. There's not a lot of shopping to be done when you're looking for those medical school loans. There is more shopping to be done on the back end once you're thinking about loan repayment. So there are multiple loan repayment plans that physicians need to be looking at, and whether they're pursuing a government plan like a forgiveness plan for public service loan forgiveness, or another income-driven forgiveness plan, or if they're going to refinance their loan on the private market, then some of the questions you would ask would be, of course, interest rate. What is the term? How long do I want to be paying off my loans? Most physicians we work with want to be done in 10 years, although every once in a while we see someone who says, I'm going to live like I'm broke and pay them off in 2 years. And we see that every once in a while.
Does that actually happen? Have you ever known anybody to get a loan like this paid off in 2 years?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Many people. We've worked with thousands. That is maybe 5% of the people we work with are on that hyper accelerated plan.
Yeah.
But if you're serious about doing it, and for some people, debt is a problem related to spirituality or religion. For others, it's just a burden they don't want to be carrying, and they want to get going on their wealth building. So for a number of reasons, people might do that acceleration. We have a client who put a sticky note on her fridge saying, live poor, pay off your student loans, a note to herself. And she did it, right?
That takes a lot of discipline.
Are you a doctor struggling to provide the best care for your patients while dealing with financial and caregiving matters out of the scope of your practice? Do you find yourself scrambling to keep up with the latest resources and wish there was an easier way? Then this virtual caregiver conference resource will save you time, money, and sanity by giving you all the resources and information your patients need in one place. This conference helps you and your patients enlist the best strategies around healthcare resources and the best financial steps for your patients while navigating caregiving situations. You don't have to go home feeling frustrated and helpless because you couldn't connect your patients with the best services. Find out more at jeanniedoherty.com or click in the link in the show's notes. You don't want to miss this caregiver resource.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but first, I'd like to share a message from Navigate. After spending years in the financial sector, Navigate has met lots of clients with all kinds of student loan issues. They were confused, they were overwhelmed by the doublespeak and the overly complex forms, and especially the deliberately misleading statements from loan servicer representatives. Navigate recognized the chaos in the student loan industry and immediately brought clarity and real solutions. If you'd like to flip the script on student debt, visit www.flipthescript.loan/MD-coaches to schedule a call with Navigate. They'll tailor a plan specifically for your unique situation and work with you until the loan is paid off. What do you have to lose besides the stress of student loan debt?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians, for physicians, to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests, whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics. Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. So what about options? When we get into that repayment period, are there any choices, or is it just a matter of you've got to decide how you're going to budget this thing and come up with the payment? How does it work at that stage?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because right now for physicians that are graduating from their residency programs, and maybe even before that, there is a sense, so there's a big program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness. It's a free federal program. It requires 120 monthly payments, so 10 years of payments on an income-driven plan while you're working for a qualified employer. And that kind of employment, it wouldn't be private practice or concierge medicine. It wouldn't be like a partnership. It wouldn't be a for-profit model. But it could be employment in a major nonprofit health system, tribal health, any kind of government like the VA or other governmental organization. Though that type of employment, a W-2, not a 1099, all would qualify for this really tremendous forgiveness program. And lots of physicians are using it. We've seen it come through for thousands of physicians, saving millions of dollars. It's beautiful. However, to answer your question, so say you're a resident getting ready to graduate, and at that same time you're job hunting, right? And for many folks with a large student loan, and let's just take a pause and talk about the size of the debt. Randy, do you want to take a guess as to what common numbers are in terms of size of student loan debt?
I'm going to guess that it's substantial. I mean, I've heard people talking in terms of around $200,000, and I'm sure there is considerable variation, and I'm sure it varies with whether we're talking about a single individual or a married couple that's gone through medical training before. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear 200K. Am I close?
Bingo. Yep, bingo. Gold star to you. When we consult with someone, we have them send us their official list of loans, and we're expecting to see $250,000 to $400,000 in student debt for physicians.
Wow.
Just one. If you're married, double that, right? It's married to a physician, example. Right. So it's huge. So I'm so glad we're talking about this. I believe, the key to health and financial health is to talk about things that are tough to talk about. So imagine you're in residency, you got this big number if you're a current resident, and you're looking for jobs. Right now, a lot of residents are thinking, wow, I have to take a job that qualifies for this loan forgiveness because my balance is so high, right? And that is not always true. So, you know how fashion trends, change over time, and men's ties are either skinny or wide, or bell bottoms are, jeans are wide or skinny. The same thing happens with these student loan forgiveness programs, and they're very popular, or they're turned down by lots of folks. And at this point in history, we're seeing them being over popular. If you know what I mean? More people think they must have a job that qualifies them for this public service loan forgiveness. When in reality, even if you have $300,000 of student debt, if you have just an average salary for a physician, you're able to manage that very well, have a spectacular financial future, even without the loan forgiveness. So that's kind of my first response to your question about, so what should people be thinking about as they're figuring out how to repay these loans? And it's kind of tough to figure that out without having some numbers. And so there's lots of online calculators you can use. If you're working with a financial advisor or a group like ours that does student loan planning, just have someone run the numbers for you on some hypothetical strategies based on different kinds of employment. And that will really help you, I think, open up the kinds of opportunities available to you rather than prematurely closing yourself off to something that might be like the perfect place for you to practice medicine.
Something that really stood out to me, of course, I did a little poking around in your website in anticipation of this conversation, and learned a little bit. There's so much more to know, but one of the things that you mentioned in there is that the loan servicers are not necessarily doing the right thing. Certainly not for the clients necessarily, maybe not even for themselves, but loan servicers actually make mistakes. Did I read that correctly?
Oh, that's absolutely true. And it's heartbreaking to see some of the things that we see. There's one lawsuit from borrowers and attorneys generals from different states that actually documented 5 million errors from one loan servicing company.
Holy cow.
Exactly. So let me just say right here, if you're a physician with a student loan and you get a letter from your loan servicer and you think to yourself, wow, that doesn't seem right, it's probably not. Right? So just trust your gut on this. Seriously, trust. I'm glad you brought that up. So trust your gut, reach out to someone, double check. Don't take any big action without checking with someone because there are a lot of errors.
I think everybody has different levels of understanding of what financial services is all about. And I am one of those people who openly and shamelessly admits that I know practically nothing about the world of finance. So terminology is always coming up that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
And one that stood out for me was recertification of income-driven repayment. What
Yeah.
in the world is that all about?
Yes, that's a good one. And you're a very good interviewer. I just got to say, Randy, these are like very clear questions that I get a lot from folks when I'm doing training. So excellent job.
I can't tell you how you have just diminished my level of anxiety. One of the things that I really fear is interviewing somebody whose story I know absolutely nothing about. So thank you so much for that little boost to my
You're
ego.
welcome.
But tell me about this recertification of income-driven
Yeah.
repayment.
So lots of folks are using an income-driven repayment plan to repay their student loans. These are federal loans. And the reason they do that is one, either they can't afford the 10-year payment, so they're on an income-based payment. And these are all set up by the government to make sure that people could afford their payments. So they wouldn't default, because then that causes a cascade of problems, right, for the individual and the society. And then the second reason that more likely that a physician might be using an income-driven plan is not that they can't afford the payments, but that they're pursuing the forgiveness program, which requires them to be on that kind of a repayment plan. So let's say you're a physician, you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness, you're on an income-driven plan, you have to tell the government or the loan servicer how much money you made last year. They'll use your IRS tax return to find that number. It's really easy. And then they set your payment amount for the next 12 months. And then by regulation, that needs to be repeated, or you need to recertify your income-driven repayment plan, to answer your question about the acronym, every year. They've actually set it up in the last 12 months to be automatic. But if it doesn't happen automatically, then you need to go on to studentaid.gov and recertify your income so that they know how much money your monthly payment will be going forward for the next 12 months.
And this is something that you have to step up one day and say, it's time for me to recertify, or do you get some kind of notice? How does this work?
Randy, this is such a big problem right now that the recertifications for income-driven repayment plans have been extended. So it was back in 2020, they first extended it. They extended it for 6 months. And they said, if you've got something due January 1st, it won't be due until July 1st,
Wow.
a recertification. And then they extended it again for a year, and then again, and then again, and then again. And supposedly November 1st, they're going to start up again. But right now, the loan servicing was thrown into such a disarray with a recent Eighth Circuit Court injunction that they're not processing anything right now, because they're trying to figure out how to comply to this Eighth Circuit Court injunction. And so we are anticipating they're going to bump it out again. It has not happened yet, but those of us on the inside can't figure out how they're going to manage this when they can't even process like basic applications right now. So there's inkling that it'll be pushed out again. However, what their website says is that if you use the IRS retrieval tool to establish your income-driven payment plan, the renewal should happen automatically. And if you didn't do that, you should get a notice 90 days before the recertification is due. And that would be an email from your loan servicing company.
So it sounds like on this particular topic, it's kind of business as usual for the government. It's fairly common to see that the right hand knows not what the left is doing, and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. But it's all the more reason for the indebted person to be very vigilant and make sure they know what's going on.
True. And I would make a comment here, not to be political, but sometimes we see right now there's a lot in the news about why should we forgive somebody's loans when other people don't have loans, right? There's been that kind of storyline in the news.
You hear that all the time, yeah.
Yeah. And what is missing there, which is often true with headlines, right, is the history and the context. So when you asked a couple of minutes ago about these errors that loan servicing companies have done, this all came to light about 2 years ago with these lawsuits by these states' attorneys general, all trying to shine the light on the errors that were made to increase profitability, basically, by those loan servicing companies, and the harm that was done to borrowers. And so then we saw lots of borrowers going public with their stories that said, I got on a plan that was available 25 years ago. I've made my payments as required every month, not a penny less, never missed a month for these 25 years. And my loan servicer caused errors, caused forbearances, they're outside of my control, capitalized the interest, on. And now, even though I've paid for 25 years on a plan that was allowed, my balance is higher today than it was 25 years ago.
That's got to sting.
That was a huge mistake. And it wasn't a mistake on the borrower's part. It was because the loan servicers were taking actions to actually increase the interest that was accruing. And so that's when Congress and the administration said, wow, with these lawsuits, we'd better do something. And so then they created these mitigating circumstances where they said, if you've paid for 20 or 25 years, 20 for undergrad loans, 25 for graduate loans, the remaining balance can be forgiven if you've made all your payments, right? And that's what the Eighth Circuit just struck down. So it was meant to mitigate the harm that was done to borrowers that had done everything right. So you don't hear this in the headlines, right? And that's what just was struck down. And so a lot of folks who are on, like the SAVE is one of the new repayment plans, that was actually struck down by injunction. And so people are really in a quandary now about what they need to do.
Have you got a feeling, or are you getting any signals in the wind about which way this is going to go?
I've been doing this for 10 years, and there have been a lot of crises in student loan management over those 10 years. And always the administration, whether it's, under Democratic president or Republican president, always the administrations have stepped up to assist borrowers. And we don't know right now what that's going to look like. But if the Department of Education does in the near future what they've always done in the past, they're going to come up with something. I think it's taking longer now because recently the court decision kind of threw things into disarray because it's a different interpretation of what had been commonly understood law prior to this. So I think that's why it's taking longer. And Randy, I just have to say to your listeners, if you are a student loan borrower, right now people aren't able to apply for plans. So if you graduated and need to start making a repayment plan, the actual online application is grayed out. They are not allowing you to get on a plan. And by your master promissory note, you only have 6 months until you need to start repaying, but the websites are not going to let you do that. So if you are a borrower or if you're a parent of a recent grad, we are recommending that people download the actual paper application and send the paper application in. The Department of Ed has said they're not processing those paper applications yet either, but at least you'll be in the queue. And then in terms of when we're going to know something, Congress could decide to pass a law. If Congress could get its act together, Randy, I shouldn't say that.
My goodness, that sounds like a bit of a pipe dream, but do tell me more.
But that won't happen until after the election, right?
Yeah.
And then after, probably next year sometime. Right. And then if the Department of Education is going to do something, it always takes them 6 months because they have to post at the federal registry, and then they need a comment period. So I think for borrowers, we're just going to have to, you said earlier, time will tell before we got live here.
Yeah.
And I think time will tell is true. But I would encourage borrowers not to be frantic about this. You have a lot of company. Everybody's in the same boat. In the past, the federal government has done a great job of coming up with something. The Department of Ed has. So I'm sure they will. Yeah. And then meanwhile, feel free to check in with us, navigatestudentloans.com. Or
that's a great idea.
Yeah, studentaid.gov is where any new announcements will come out about any fixes that they're offering. That's studentaid.gov. That's the Department of Education's federal student loan website. So hang in there was my suggestion.
Easier said than done, I bet.
Yeah.
Let's shift to another topic which causes me a little confusion, and I would like to know more about it, and that is this issue of, or this option of public service forgiveness. It kind of sounds like if you sign up for a job that maybe somebody else doesn't want to do, you can get at least some relief from your loan. Now, am I overthinking it, or am I in the right territory, and does it work?
Perfect. You got it. Yep. So, public service loan forgiveness is a terrific tool for physicians with student loans that are working in a major health system that happens to be a nonprofit. Typically, I think 2/3 of our major health systems are nonprofit institutions, and so there are a lot of job opportunities there for folks that are practicing medicine. What typically happens, every situation is different, but typically the physician borrower will save hundreds, maybe $1,000 a month on their payments. And then overall, they could save, $100,000 on their student loans overall and be done in 10 years, which, like I said earlier, most physicians want to be done before their kids are starting
You
to
bet, yeah. Before they start paying on somebody else's educational debt.
Exactly.
For sure.
So yeah, it can be a terrific plan. It's fraught with problems. It has a 30% rejection rate. So you really want to either really be on your P's and Q's or work with an organization that's going to help you make it.
One other thing that I've noticed, I think on your website is where I got this from, was the notion of, when we're talking about student loan incentives, with respect to how that connects with a search for practice positions or attending positions. Can you tell us more about that one?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things we've seen in the last decade is that healthcare employers have really had a shift in mindset. It used to be that they would assume that a student loan burden was the fault or the responsibility of the physician borrower. And in the last 10 plus years, we've seen a shift of that to understanding that the system is broken for financing education in this country, and we need our doctors to be smart. And in order to be smart and be able to care for us, they've got to incur these awful high student loans. And so institutions have come alongside physicians to say, hey, let us participate with you in supporting you in this. We also know there's been research about the impact of physicians with student loans, and the research would show what you might guess, right? A physician with a student loan shows signs of depression. They're putting off major life decisions, and if you are a recruiter in a healthcare system and you're looking for your new physicians, you're wanting them to put down roots, right, in that community, which means getting married and having kids and going to school. And if you're a physician with a student loan and you're putting off major life decisions, right? So you can see how it's all intertwined. And so some of the loan incentives we see commonly around the country is sometimes there can be signing bonuses that can be used to offset a student loan. Sometimes there can be specific loan assistance dollars that are paid directly to the physician, and then the physician manages them how they might, and they would make the payments to the loan servicing company, just like their usual payments. We often see that connected as a retention bonus. So, for example, it might be, we'll give you $20,000 a year for 3 years in exchange for a commitment to stay with us for 3 years. I mean, we've seen some really big numbers in terms of student loan assistance. It's pretty common that an organization will offer something, either through a signing bonus or a loan retention. Number of organizations, we're happy to say, have taken us on to provide student loan counseling to their employed physicians. That's one of our favorite things to do. If you're a physician listening to this podcast, check with your employer. You might have access to us at no charge to yourself because your employer picks up the bill. There are some instances where the employer pays the loan servicer directly or the bank directly. That's not the preferred model anymore, but that used to be kind of the old-fashioned way to do it. And then a number of organizations qualify for National Health Service Corps or the tribal loan forgiveness. A number of things that employers can do to support their doctors on this.
So I guess the big message here is if you are indebted and you're looking for a job, you should ask your potential employer if that's an option.
Exactly. Yep.
And
They
if
are.
you're an employer, you should think about using this as an attractant. I would think it
Exactly.
would
Yes.
be very
Exactly.
helpful. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the thing that is almost on us and really makes this entire conversation fairly prescient, I hope. And that is that it's almost October.
Yeah.
And the loans come due, right?
Right.
So what's going to happen? What are the changes? What are the surprises? What are people going to face in October?
Exactly. So loan payments are going to be due recently because of the injunction. Everybody that was on an income-driven plan is on a forbearance, which is, if you're on one of those income-driven plans, you're on a forbearance until they figure out how they're going to manage this new plan. So for those folks, your payments aren't due right now. For other folks that are just starting out, like if you were just graduated from medical school and you have a 6-month grace period and now your loans are going to be due, you do need to pick a repayment plan. Otherwise, they'll put you on the standard plan, which if you owe $300,000, that payment might be $3,500 a month. And that might take up all of your residency stipend, right? So that it would not be a good plan for most people. You could pick a forbearance. A general forbearance would be something that you ask them to put you on where you don't have a payment for a certain amount of time. Typically, we're not seeing very many physicians use that strategy right now, unless you're maybe a more older physician who maybe has children and is married already, and a non-traditional medical school student. And then sometimes those payments during residency can be high compared to the monthly budget. We're talking about like an income-driven repayment would probably be about $200 or $300 a month. And on a residency salary, if you've got either living in a high cost of living state or city, or if you have family obligations, that can be hard to do. So then forbearance might be the way to go. But otherwise, time to get onto a plan. And right now, the only way to do that is through the paper plan. Everybody's in the same boat, though, Randy. Like everybody that graduated recently has to get on a plan. And so we're assuming that the Department of Education is going to be getting this figured out shortly. And so let's just say they do figure it out. Okay. I'm guessing they're going to figure it out.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, it would be to go to studentaid.gov, log in, and then there's the tab that says Manage Loans. And under that tab, there's a tab that says Select a Repayment Plan. For most folks with federal loans, they'll be picking an income-driven plan, typically during residency. They'll have a calculator there and you can figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the big message that we would like to get out right now. And that is, the time is here and people should do something, not just sit there as the saying goes. And I can't think of a better something to do than to get in touch with Navigate. So this is going to be your cue to tell the audience where to find your company and what the process is going to look like.
Yes. So for listeners, seriously, we do this because we love it, right? And it's our great honor and pleasure that a physician might choose to work with us. And what we can guarantee is that we will listen to you and understand your loan questions and then help you come up with like the perfect plan for you. So the way to find us is to go to our website, navigatestudentloans.com. And on the upper right-hand corner, it says schedule a call. Just click there and pick a date and time on our calendar. Your first call is always free. We answer a lot of questions that first call, and then we're happy to talk to you about what it would look like to be working with us for the lifetime of your loans.
What an incredibly useful service for people that have gone to the trouble to acquire a good education and spend a lot of money on it. And it would be really nice to not have to suffer under the oppressive weight of debt and not knowing which way to turn. So I'm really glad that your company is there, and I know all of your clients feel exactly the same way. And I want to encourage our audience to look into it and talk to people that you may know who should look into it. I'd also like to mention that there is an incredible success story that can be found in one of our podcasts. We have a sister podcast called Life-Changing Moments. And in that podcast, Life-Changing Moments, episode number 41, you will actually hear Joy and Dr. Desmond Bell talk about how he was able to resolve his massive educational debt. And I'll go ahead and say it, I don't think he would mind. Des is not a young man. So if you're not doing the right things, you can find yourself with oppressive debt like this when you really should be at a point where you're enjoying your practice and enjoying your life.
I think from my perspective, he did everything right, and things were done to him or happened in his life that created this unusual situation, which really is not all that uncommon. So yeah,
Right.
I love that you talked about that episode, and I encourage people to listen in.
Yeah, it's a great conversation, and I do hope our listeners will take advantage of that. And with that, Joy, I think we are at the end of our conversation, and I want to tell you that I have enjoyed this one as much as I did the last. You're just so you're such a source of things that I have no understanding of, and I'm truly fascinated every time we have a conversation. And I want to thank you so much for being here. It really has been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, and thank you for picking this really important topic. I really appreciate our time together.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. If you enjoyed the show, please help us reach more listeners by leaving a rating and a review, especially on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if your app doesn't have that option, just leave us an email or a voicemail through SpeakPipe at www.mymdcoaches.com/podcast. You can also help by becoming a Patreon member. That link is in the show notes. And we hope you'll also follow our companion podcast, Life-Changing Moments with Dr. Dale Waxman. Special thanks to our producer, Craig Clausen, our promotions manager, Mariana Rodabaugh, and to Ryan Jones, who created and performs our theme music. And remember, be sure to fill your prescription for success with my next episode.